Hey everyone, Aussie Viking here. This is my another video that I want to talk about. So film and stuff. So everywhere you go, people complain about film, saying this is objectively better and this is objectively better. Now here's the thing when it comes to film. Film is art, and in a way, it can be fully criticised in objectiveness, but at the same time, it cannot. For example, you look at something like The Room. Now, most people say it's a terribly made film because bad acting, bad writing, everything's overdubbed, it's got this, it's got that. It just doesn't work. The script is bad, the visuals are in, all that. So, but from a filmmaker standpoint, there are things that kind of work and things that are objectively bad. For example, the story. You get plot lines that just go nowhere, and there's no semblance of, hey, remember that time your mother had cancer? Yeah? Well, she's good now. Hey, my life feels great. None of that, nothing kind of connects. Script writing wise, it's not that good. But then you look at The Room in certain aspects. So, for example, the visuals isn't that bad. There is some good camera work in the film. Not perfect, but it's adequate. And certain, okay, I don't want to say certain acting because the acting is just bad. So you've got script, bad acting for the most part, and then you've just got okay visuals and camera work, and then set design, which is some moments is like, that's not too bad, and some moments like, why is there spoons there? You know, there are moments where it works, moments where it doesn't. Overall, of course, what works and doesn't isn't as equal as certain other films. It's kind of very bad. For example, someone can say that film is completely the worst film ever made. I'd agree. And someone says that is the greatest film ever made because when you get really drunk, you just enjoy yourself. That's an perspective that you can enjoy and say, you know, well, that's fair enough. Though, to be fair, The Room is just a bad film in general, for me at least. But there are some quirks to it that kind of work. So let's move on to other films, right? I want to talk about a film series in general that I love and that I've been a part of and I just love in general. Let's talk about Star Wars, alright? This one's kind of an easy one to do. So people are saying that the sequel trilogy is fantastic. And I'm wondering, well, why is it fantastic? It looks great, the acting is easy to follow, the stories are just so good, and stuff like that. But when you break it down, it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't really work in itself. So, for example, with, say, The Force Awakens, people say this is the re-emergence of Star Wars, and it's like, no, it's not. The Force Awakens is just bad in general. For example, it looks good. I will give you that. It looks and sounds great. The music is fantastic, the sound effects are fantastic, and the visuals are superb. And that's what draws you in. If you get those three things right, you are drawing your audience in. And if you do those well, when the problems come up, the audience won't really care. Because to them they can't see it. Because instead of it being like, that doesn't make any sense, they go, but the visuals are great, the acting is great. But you get right down to it, it doesn't make much sense. Doesn't work. Writing wise, there isn't much depth or heart there. So when it's come up, make no sense. Rey goes from, oh, there's some interesting stuff here, to a Mary Sue. A very bad one at that, I must say. And then you've got things like, hey, new planets, but they're the same planets we've seen before. Hey, cool new aliens, but it's missing something. Hey, look, we've got new bad guys, but they're the same bad guys as before, you know. When you get down to it, there are some films that do the whole, hey, it looks good on the surface, but as soon as you start eating it away, it starts to turn into crap. It just starts to taste bland, disgusting, and bleh. And then you look at other films which are like, a bit crusty on the top, doesn't look all that imaginative, doesn't look all that good. Certain things may come out and you're like, okay, you know, that end looks nice, but the middle, when you start eating it, it gets better, there's more flavour, there's more depth to it. And to me, that's kind of filmmaking in general. For example, again, The Room. Imagine it's just a giant cake, but it looks like terrible shit, right? Sure, there's one good piece there and one little good piece there, but overall you're kind of like, I can only have little bites of it. You can't have much more. That's the sort of cake of what The Room is, right? There are some good things in it. Some. But I would say for the rest of it, as an objective cake, it's like, bleh. Then you look at the sequel trilogy. Oh, it looks so good on the surface. Then you start eating it, and then it starts to go from yum to ugh. starts to taste like rusty mold, and it just falls apart. It doesn't have any substance or depth. It just bland. Goes very bland. But you look at it and you're like, but it looks so good. It smells so good. That first bite was so good. What happened? They only did the surface, not the bottom. And this is where I get with the prequels, right? Okay, this is going to go into the prequel thing, but this is why I say the prequels are great. Yes, on the surface, they ain't easy to follow. They're not easy to follow. There's that. Some of the acting can be hit or miss. There's that. But the world, the music, the design, the characters, the exploration, the story. The top, maybe a bit strange, but the bottom, every time you keep eating more bites, it just gets richer and richer. There is depth there. And don't get me wrong, the depth is big enough that you got to do the whole... There's a bit of cherry there. And a bit of hint of vanilla and some cinnamon. Like, you've kind of got to do that. You've got to go in depth with that sort of stuff. But it comes together in a more riper way. And this is where I think people get a bit crazy, because most people these days, they want the whole meal to be... And, you know, sometimes you get that. I would say The Joker was one of those meals where it was just every bite from the top to the end was a fluffy masterpiece. But then you get films like the prequels where it's like, okay, a bit rough at the start, but once you get down to it, you start getting to the little details, it starts to come alive, and it's much more fruitier, tasteful, and well done. And then you got people saying, I don't see it, I don't taste it, I think you're wrong. But then you look at it, the films as objectiveness, right? There's some great shots, so we'll look at the prequels again. There's some great shots there. There are some objectively great camera shots and camera work there. There are some great special effects. You can say all you want that it has rusted away, but hey, you go to the original trilogy, there are moments you're just like, oh, those special effects are pretty old. There is some good acting. The older actors are pretty good, and in character context, and the newer actors make sense. You know, Anakin, people say he's too whiny. It's like, he's no less whiny than Anakin, than Luke Skywalker in the first film, and even parts of the second film. And he's got context behind him, because it's like, well, hey, you know, there's that context there, and you understand who he is and why he does this. Same for many other characters. Not much with the newer ones, you know. Why is Kylo Ren a whiny little bitch? Because his grandfather almost killed him in his sleep. Why did he do that? I don't know. You gotta read all this, you gotta read all that. You see, there's always these depth things you've got to kind of evil and bad. But then you've got people who are like, phew. That's terrible. The people that think they're the chefs, right? The people that are like, I'm a chef. If you're going to make me a cake, it must be the cake that I want, with my fillings, with my spices, and so on and so forth. And if you do not give them the way that they expect you to make their cake for them, or what they believe a good cake should be, then they go and say that falters and stuff. And this is the interesting part about... I know it's a weird analogy, but I kind of think it works, and it's kind of fun. This is what I like about art. Each cake does not have to be the cake that you want. Sometimes you've got to be like, okay, I like ice cream cake and I like banana cake. This cake over here, it's an apple cake. Apple and cinnamon. Not the biggest apple cinnamon fan, but you know what? You love it. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see what you like. You tell me what you like about it. You tell me about these aftertastes and such, and I will eat it. I'll take my time. There might, you know, and in time I might like certain aspects of it, but I might not like it fully. But I can understand and respect why you, sir, or you, madam, like it. And I know this feeling can be a bit strange, but the idea is, there is, like before, an objectiveness to what you do and how you do things, like with the room. Objectively, it's bad, I would say, but there are some good objective moments that actually work. Same with the sequels, same with the prequels, same with any film. It just depends on your perspective, your tastes, and how you like it. This is why when some people have certain moments of their childhood, when you're a child, you saw the original trilogy. Best fucking banana cake, ice cream banana cake you ever had. Prequels come along, it's not the right banana. It's not the right ice cream. Instead of Neapolitan, it could just be caramel, you know? Even though it has tastes and inserts of that banana and that ice cream you liked. There's always those, you know, as you can see and as you can tell, this analogy kind of works, kind of doesn't. It really depends on your perspective, but that's how I see things. Just because, in the end, just because it doesn't match your recipe, what you want, doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you might have to see the other person's recipe, taste it, get a good balance of it, and then move on. Because in the end, cakes are forever. There's always going to be a cake. And when you find the cake that you love, let it. Just eat it. People don't even like cakes, so fuck those guys. But yeah, this is sort of my little video about why I think certain things work and certain things don't. Because in the end, just because it looks beautiful doesn't mean it has heart and soul. And just because it's a bit rough around the edges doesn't mean it hasn't got depth. And don't get me wrong, most of us want that perfect cake where each level just works. But to truly go into why it works can kind of depend on our flavours, our tastes, and what we want to get out of it. Anyway, this video is getting long, and as much as I love to try to understand a perspective teach a perspective that I want you to understand, I can't. I got other things to do. So, this Aussie Viking out. I'll see you all in Valhalla. Hopefully this made sense. I know it's a kind of a strange analogy, but I think in the long run it's kind of helpful. Anyway, see you in Valhalla.